What's up, guys? We are just 1 month away from UFC 310. Shavkat Rakhmonov still needs a replacement. Bilal out. We all know that. He's dealing with an injury. That's totally fine, but we still want to see Shavkat on this card. UFC 310 kind of needs to keep that type of name power on here, but we're just 1 month out, and every single day that goes by between now and then, it's going to be harder and harder to find a solid, credible replacement that's actually going to make for a competitive fight. So I want to throw a few names out there. We have rumors flying around. We have names flying around. Who do we actually want to see take on a guy like Shavkat? I'd be interested to see what you guys think. The first name that I'll throw out there, Colby Covington. He actually put his name into the mix. He went to the UFC and said, hey, I'm available. I'm willing to take the fight on short notice. I don't care. Give me that shot. And the UFC actually denied him. Dana White actually said no. They had other plans available for this fight. So I'm not surprised to hear that. Colby Covington is super inactive. He's been holding up the division for years now. I could go on a whole Colby Covington rant. I won't. I kind of feel like his whole career has been overrated. He's coming off a title shot challenge, a contention with Leon Edwards, where he really did nothing for the first 3-4 rounds and then finally started getting takedowns later in the fight. And you're just stuck wondering where that was the entire time. It was a very underwhelming, very confusing performance out of Colby Covington. And he's, 36 years old now? He's past his prime. I feel like he's just going to take a backseat to a ton of guys. So I understand why Colby would try to do this. He's one of those guys who just sits and waits for massive fights only. Obviously thinks that he's worthy of a title shot at any given time. I feel like that's just not where we are right now. Colby is old news, and he needs to take a back seat. So I'm not surprised that Dana White said no. I'm not surprised that they're looking at other names. So I don't really want to see Colby Covington. He's more of a boring wrestler. Grind you against the cage, shoot for 20 takedowns, lay and pray. He's got like no submission upside. He has no finishability on the feet. So that's not a fight that I'm interested in seeing. Maybe you guys think differently. I know Colby's got a massive fan base, or at least he used to, but that's not the fight that I'm looking for. So another name that we've seen, actually, no, you know what? A name that we haven't seen, and it's surprising that we haven't seen it, is Leon Edwards. Where in the world is Leon Edwards? He's only, 4 months removed from losing his title to Bilal Muhammad? 4 months? He didn't really take all that much damage. It feels like he could turn around. This is a massive opportunity for him. If he wants to get back into the title shot contention, I feel like this is a fight that he very well could take. It's a legacy fight for him. I feel like if you want to have some sort of reputation, some BMF reputation, then yeah, you take this fight on short notice. Someone like Kamaru Usman was willing to do it. Why not Leon Edwards? I feel like he is extremely well-rounded. He's not the biggest finisher out there, but he's extremely well-rounded, where I think he can really go toe-to-toe with just about anybody. I don't see why he doesn't really go for this more. I haven't really seen that. Maybe I'm missing something, but I haven't seen his name added to the mix, and that's just the story of Leon Edwards in a nutshell. The dude flies under the radar constantly, even though he is a former champion. He did defend the belt against Kamaru Usman after, head kick knockout round 5, which was one of the craziest knockouts we've ever seen. He did defend against Usman after that, and then he defended against Colby Covington after that. So, he does have a pretty solid resume, a pretty solid legacy. I think you turn around short notice, massive opportunity, and you try to go for a guy like Shavkat. That would put a massive W next to your name. So I'm surprised he's not lobbying for that fight more. Again, maybe he has been. I just haven't really seen it. But that's a name that I think we need to start talking about at least a little bit more, because the next name that I'm going to give you is the name that seems the most likely. It's definitely the most rumored fight that I've seen. I've actually talked about it this past week. Kamaru Usman. This is a guy who has been rumored that the fight is being targeted for UFC 310 as a replacement. But I think Usman actually just came out. I'm pretty sure I was just reading this recently, where he hasn't gotten a call from the UFC. That seems to be fake news. Now, they still might be targeting it, but he has not been officially called upon by the UFC. And he did say that if he does get that call, he will take it. So it still feels like this is going to be the most likely fight. I personally don't love Kamaru Usman at this stage in his career taking short notice fights. But, we just saw him do that against Khamzat Chimaev. He took that fight on like a week's notice. That was up a weight class. And he performed just about as good as anybody has against Khamzat Chimaev, especially when you look at the fact that Chimaev against Whitaker, Whitaker, one of the best middleweights of all time, and still today, still one of the best middleweights on the roster, gets not just submitted, but his jaw was literally caved in. It got crushed by the power, that squeeze of Khamzat Chimaev. That's insane. Now you think about Kamaru Usman and how he was able to withstand that early onslaught in round 1 from Chimaev, and then he goes on in 2 and 3 and nearly wins the fight. You could very well argue that he did win that fight. So Usman is going to be game to take on just about anybody. I just hate the fact that he's going to have to take this fight on short notice. We're just a month out, and the fight's probably going to take place at 170. So he is actually going to have to cut weight. So I don't like that for Kamaru Usman, but I do think he has the best chance to beat a guy like Shavkat, or at least push him to the brink all 5 rounds. I want to see what Shavkat is made of, and it feels like Kamaru Usman pretty much checks every box that we want to see. I mean, the wrestling is there, the grappling is there, defensively and offensively. His striking has come such a long way, where he has great boxing skills, has a great power jab. He's got big power in his right hand as well. And then we know for a fact that he can go a hard 5 rounds. So that's not going to be an easy fight for Shavkat, even though it would potentially be on a month's notice. But I guess we'll see, because it feels like his name makes the most sense. He already said that if he does get the call, he's going to take it. It's just, let's get it done. Like, what are we waiting for? We're just a month out. Every day that you wait, I just said it, every day that you wait between now and then is, you're going to have less of a competitive fight, because you're putting pressure on that fighter to cut weight on shorter amount of time. I just don't like that. So let's get the deal done today. It's got to be Kamaru Usman. There were a few other names I wanted to throw out there, because I feel like at 170, it's a pretty deep roster. There's some other names we can throw out there. So Jack Della Maddalena, Sean Brady, 2 guys who currently have no scheduled fights, unless I've missed something, but I looked it up. I don't think they have anybody scheduled for the foreseeable future. Again, this is a massive opportunity to take on who's pretty much the number 1 contender in this division. I get it from a standpoint of JDM and Brady are both probably going to get their shots, earned fair and square pretty soon. So why run the risk? Why take the fight on short notice against the biggest killer in that division? I understand that. But again, it's still UFC 310. It's a pay-per-view. It's a potential main event slot. That's a massive opportunity you might not want to let slip away. So JDM, Sean Brady, those are names that I'm looking at. Actually, common opponent that they both have is Gilbert Burns. Why not Gilbert Burns? I know he just lost to Sean Brady back in, I think it was early September, so we're looking at like a 3-month turnaround. But dude, Gilbert Burns can do that. That's where he is at this stage in his career. I don't think he's going to be challenging for the belt at any point in his career at this point. Why not do it? He's a dude that's also willing to just go against anybody. We saw him take the fight against Khamzat Chimaev when he was a plus 500 underdog. Nobody else wanted to take that fight. Gilbert Burns did it. He took on guys like JDM, like Sean Brady, who are the younger up-and-comers that nobody really wants to fight. Gilbert Burns was willing to do that. The dude's an absolute beast. Why not throw his name into the mix? I kind of feel like that's got to be on the table somewhat. So those are names that I want to see. And then there's always the situation where maybe they just bring in some regional scene hero, and Shavkat goes in as a minus 10,000 favorite, gets a ridiculous early round 1 finish, adds a highlight to his name, and maybe loses the main event slot in the making. Maybe they make him like the pay-per-view opener, the main card opener. I don't really want to see that. We've seen it happen before. I remember Bo Nickel last minute had to take on Val Woodburn, who, was basically just being fed to the wolves at that point, and Bo Nickel was like a minus 2,000 favorite. We might be looking at something like that. I don't love that scenario, but again, we're running out of options. So let's see. We had Colby Covington. We had Leon Edwards, Kamaru Usman, probably the most likely scenario. And then, JDM, Sean Brady, Gilbert Burns, those are the names that I want to see. I'm curious what you guys think. Who do you want to see take on Shavkat? We are just 1 month away from UFC 310. We're running out of time. Let me know what you guys think. Make sure to hit that like button. Make sure to hit that subscribe button. And we'll see you guys next time.